Finally, we can tell you, is Putin the new Hitler, or is the Ukraine war a proxy war between the US and Russia being used to drive profits, or is it a bit of both? Hello there, you 5.8 million awakening wonders. Thank you for joining me on this voyage towards truth. Thank you for learning the critical skills to discern truth from fiction. Thank you for becoming a person that is willing to listen to the validity of opposing viewpoints. Well done for growing beyond the pain and trauma you've experienced in your life, becoming an awakening soul together with me. It ain't easy, is it? It's tricky sometimes, but at least there's 5.8 million of us now on this voyage together. Sorry that we didn't put a video out yesterday. I was under a lot of pressure. I had some problems with my throat. Some people say I talk too much. Now what's in the news? Actually, we want to talk about a very important issue. Much of the framing around the Russia-Ukraine conflict involves portraying Vladimir Putin as a tyrannical monster. Ultimately, if you're talking about a person with that amount of power, you're discussing someone who's comfortable with geopolitical violence, that's comfortable with making decisions of that nature. Is that almost beyond morality? That's a bigger question. But when discussing Vladimir Putin and whether or not he's portrayed as being more malfeasant in order to legitimize a war that's profitable, that's a good question. Because I've got friends who say, listen, Russell, Putin is a danger. He's pursuing an imperial project that could lead to the downfall of the West, and it is our responsibility to arm Ukraine to the absolute titty boob to ensure that nothing goes wrong. Okay, I'm open to hearing the evidence. I had a conversation with Matt Taibbi. You are gonna love this chat. It's fantastic, it's informative, it's brave, and it's bold. So in this clip, Matt Taibbi talks about the enormous defense budget that was granted to the Pentagon, how they were given more money even than they asked for, where that money ends up, and how bad Putin is in reality. Stay to the very end of this clip. Give me your comments, subscribe, like. Remember, usually, except for yesterday, we make videos every single day, so it's vital you turn on the notification bell because you need to know when we're releasing content, because we need you watching so that we can generate the power to drive this movement. Stay to the very end. You're going to love this conversation. Is, in your view, the Ukraine war being used to facilitate massive profits while fighting a proxy war with Russia? And what are the risks of telling that story? And why have I got friends, people that I really respect, that are not even on the conventional left, but sort of are nevertheless saying to me, Russell, Putin is a unique threat. He is a unique danger. He's trying to revive a kind of Russian imperialist post-Soviet project. You know, we should be doing whatever we can to arm Ukraine and defeat him. And when I hear this, I just think, I feel, no, I can't get on board with this anymore. I've been hurt too many times, you know.
Right.
I just want to know what your take is, Matt. I know you've written about it extensively.
Look, I did a story a couple of weeks ago about the U.S. defense budget, which is has undergone this incredible hike this year. It's up to $840 billion. It's probably going to end up higher than that. It's going to end up probably in the $850 billion range. And what's amazing about that is that that number by itself is roughly $60 billion above what the president even asked for. It's above what the Pentagon even asked for. This is all because they didn't even have to argue for this extra funding. All they had to say was it's for Ukraine through in a bipartisan fashion. So clearly, look, whatever the merits or not of sending weapons to Ukraine, it's clearly a boon to the weapons industry. They've made a fortune off of this. They're selling airplanes all over Europe. Just this week, there was another deal with, Germany's buying more F-35s. There's a whole long conga line of countries that are buying these expensive airplanes from the United States. And the sort of unspoken dynamic here is that we expect this to be a long, protracted conflict that is going to require massive appropriations for at least a couple of years out into the future. And they've already mapped that out in the budgets. So what does that tell you? I mean, again, irrespective of the merits, this is going to be expensive. It's going to include tons and tons of weapons. And there's a certain element of the Beltway that is just thrilled to tears that we have this narrative that's going to allow everybody in the city to be happy again.
I suppose I want to do service to my friends who believe that Putin is a unique threat. And I suppose when we have these conversations, we always have to temper it with no one saying that Putin is a good guy, or that Russians don't have their own imperialist plans, or there aren't Russian dissidents complaining about this war, or that the suffering of Ukrainian people is anything other than tragic and unnecessary, as all wars are. It's always the ordinary people that suffer. But when you see how this narrative is being used to justify price hikes domestically, is expedient for the weapons industry, does the job of creating a degree of sort of that kind of domestic fortitude that always comes along with military action, when we've already seen what the template is in Afghanistan. I sometimes don't know how people conjure up if a fairy dies if we don't believe in Tinkerbell. I don't know where people get that optimism from anymore. I don't know how people can do it, and I don't think that it's unpatriotic. And I'm astonished again that that unpatriotic is becoming a leftist trope, and it's difficult for me. And I don't know how you feel, but if you sub out the crisis, I feel like that in the pandemic. Again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. There's no need to be a conspiracy theorist. I'm only interested in looking at numbers. That's why I look at your writing so much, Max. I was like, well, look, this is what bill was passed. This is who writes it. This is what they spend on lobbying during the pandemic. Similarly, the media support a centralized idea, an idea that's being generated by the state, and I just see the same kind of collusion. I don't want to jump into the pandemic right yet because I want to talk to you on a variety of subjects, but when you can see the utility of this conflict, it's difficult to believe wholeheartedly in the righteousness, the necessity of the conflict.
Yeah, it's all a little bit convenient, right? I mean, I lived in Russia for 12 years. I had a newspaper that was shut down by Putin. I don't have any illusions about the guy. We were extremely negative about him from the moment he came into power. But the notion that this is some modern day Hitler who's going to march all the way to the English Channel, I think is belied by what you're seeing in Ukraine, which is that although they have a very big military, it's not nearly as powerful as people are making it out to be. Russia is a basket case economically. They are very clever in the intelligence sector. They probably have some long-range plans that are pretty well thought out. But the idea that opposing Putin in Ukraine is going to restore belief in the democratic project, which is something we've seen overtly expressed all over the American media, at least, is bizarre. Like there were several articles saying, well, yeah, it was too bad we had to leave Afghanistan, but now we have something to believe in again, which just seems strange to me. Like, do we really need a war to believe in something? And does it need to be this? And I don't know. It is a little bit all too convenient for me. And then you add to that the other factor of this constant propaganda that Putin isn't just an independent actor, but connected to this world nefarious chaos-like network of evildoers that includes Orban and Trump and Le Pen and the anti-abortion movement in the United States. I think that's delusional. It's like straight out of George Bush's playbook.
Do you know what it makes me feel? That they're recognizing the efficacy of some conspiratorial discourse in that it mobilizes people. Whilst I would refute a good many of the more baroque conspiracy theories that exist around this portion of the internet, and I understand why people believe in conspiracies. This is a crazy time. It's like they're trying to create their own Rococo image systems of, Trump is teaming up with Putin. What kind of crisis in meaning do we have that our media institutions are so willing? I mean, of course, we talked at length before about the sort of change in the kind of class dynamics and the kind of sociology that sort of is held within the media circles. You explained that very well last time. But what is the function of these stories? Is it purely economic? Is if you believe and I believe that Putin, while nefarious, is not the new Hitler, that there isn't a global project, that if Ukraine aren't correctly armed, it's not going to lead to the collapse of the West. What is it that's taking place between the state and their sort of propaganda arm, which amounts to the privately run media? Why are they so willing to trot out like Raytheon, former military generals that work for Raytheon and vice versa? Why is that happening, Matt?
Well, I think, what we've seen going back to 2016 is this crisis of the political establishment where they've sort of the institutions of the West have lost the faith of populations, I think probably for a good reason, because huge portions of the population, both in the United States, but in countries all over the world. This is why you see movements like Brexit and, things happening all over the planet. I think the institutional West sees that it's in crisis, that there's a problem of belief, that people don't have the confidence in everything from the press to the military to members of Congress to the presidency that they used to have. And so in order to keep people on board and to keep people from drifting into oppositional political movements, I think that they're in this place where they need an emergency in order to keep the population sufficiently focused in the right direction. And that's been true ever since, in this kind of near constant state of emergency. It's been that we've moved from one thing to the next, whether it was Russiagate to Ukrainegate to Bountygate, then it was the pandemic, then it was war in Ukraine, and it's this never-ending feeling of anxiety that I think they're using as a way to keep the population in check, when once upon a time they didn't have to do that. People were just sort of obedient generally.
What I liked about this conversation is the emotional component, the generation of fear and anxiety. Are these news stories used to keep us spellbound, tricked and in check? We're going to go a little bit deeper on that subject in our next video, which will be tomorrow. So turn on your notification bell. Let me know in the comments who you want to see appearing on our show. Remember, the person that puts that text message, oh, hello, it's me replying, send us a text. That's not me. That is not me. Don't reply to anyone unless it's me. Look, here I am. This is me. I live in this person. Thank you very much for your loyalty. Thanks for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe now. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at one of these two and sign up to my mailing list, because that's where I can give you under the cover, backstreet shady, black market data and information that I can't say on a platform such as this one. Please stay connected, but more important than anything, stay free.